more analysis on this issue, of course, and we're joined then via Zoom by Political Analyst Mr. Levy Ndou. Mr. Ndou, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so very much for availing yourself here to SABC News.
Good afternoon, Flo. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Let me start very simply then. So what do you make of today's testimony by the president? What are your initial thoughts on some of the concessions that he kind of made today in terms of saying that, you know what, things did go horribly wrong? At what point does the acknowledgement then become responsibility?
Well, I think it stems from the statement that the president made in his opening remarks. That firstly, he said that as the ANC, they are there to cooperate with the Commission and provide as much information as possible so that they are able to leave the chapter of corruption behind. And I think it's also important as well that in the process of providing information, the president also had to acknowledge that there are certain things that actually went wrong. Obviously, that was quite expected of me because on a number of occasions, the ANC had started acknowledging the mistakes that have been committed, especially when it comes to deployment in the SOEs.
Yeah.
The state that the SOEs are in today might have been influenced by the deployment processes of the ANC. The state of municipalities in South Africa today might have also been influenced by the deployment processes of the ANC. But it is not something new that we hear from the ranks of the ANC talking about things having went horribly wrong. The ANC has been aware that they've been deploying people without skills, people that are not properly qualified, especially in municipalities. And that is why we find our municipalities in this state. But I think what is also quite remarkable on my side is that on behalf of the ANC, the president seemed to be saying, we've acknowledged our mistakes, but we're also prepared to move forward. The question will be as to whether indeed that is what is actually the case with all other members of the ANC, because they know where the problems are, but they've got an incapacity to deal with those problems.
Yeah. Mr. Ndou, as I was chatting to our politics editor, Mzondile Mbeshe, just before I spoke to you, one of the questions I posed to him was if he had to come up with a headline, just a one-liner in terms of what came out of today, he mentioned he would say something like, the president defends cadre deployment. You're talking about cadre deployment as well, and I think you're also putting that quite high in terms of, what came out of today as the president was testifying. Would you agree with that? Would you agree that that would be the main thing to extract out of that? Was there a sense that the president was indeed defending a cadre deployment?
Flo, I would also start by saying that I felt a bit disappointed that the commission has spent almost the whole day discussing cadre deployment. My reason being that the chairperson of the ANC, Cadre Deployment, has been at the commission talking about the same cadre deployment. Obviously, Cadre and the president of the ANC, Ramaphosa, have to sing from the same book. Maybe the commission should have focused on other areas that other officials of the ANC have not been focusing on. I'm saying this because President Ramaphosa only has tomorrow to deal with organizational matters. And for me, there were plenty of other issues that the commission had to focus on in relation to the activities of the ANC. And if I also had to bring a newspaper headlines, I would say repetitions on deployment committee by the commission has costed a lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, Out of today's, with the president testifying at the commission today, and I mean, you're saying that he still has tomorrow to go, and there's not a lot that would be coming out of just one day. What do you think the commission would then have to correct in terms of what they're posing to the president? It seems that you feel that there are some gaps, some loose ends that took place this afternoon. What do you feel tomorrow needs to really be sort of ironed out? I know we left off at the part where we're talking about Bosasa and the contracts that Bosasa had with the ANC, and I suppose we'll get to where Bosasa gets government contracts. But what are some of the loose ends that then need to be tied so that there is indeed something we're getting out of the president?
Well, I think what would be crucial for me would be that the commission should focus on its basics. And the basics for me are areas that are related to matters of corruption. And as they were closing today, that's when they were starting to talk about the knowledge that some members of the ANC might have had when they were receiving donations from certain companies. What I think is crucial for me would be for the ANC to come out clear to say whether there were times or moments wherein they will deliberately have a discussion and create some form of funding that is actually getting its resources from proceeds of crime, or whether they would actually identify certain companies and try to give them funding so that that money should actually indirectly still go back to the ANC, so that we should actually be able to know the extent of corruption that has actually been taking place. But whether we like it or not, Ramaphosa is appearing on behalf of the party, and it is very natural that he will do his best to put his party in a positive light, so that it is seen as a party that is actually doing something on matters of corruption. And that is what most leaders are expected to do. But for me, I would also expect the ANC, out of this exercise, to develop clear guidelines on how they are fighting against corruption and the implementation of such guidelines thereof.
Mr. Ndou, do you think that the president is walking a sort of tightrope? And the reason I ask that is, it's a thin line between, speaking the truth about what happened, what took place, and making concessions, and then on the back of that, then also, incriminating anyone else within the ANC, including himself. Is he seemingly walking this tightrope as you watch?
Well, I think for me, the president is quite very careful when he's providing his evidence. And I know why he's being careful. He's being careful because he's invited to sit at the commission as a leader of the ANC. And what he's actually trying to do is to try and explain ANC processes in a manner that everybody will be able to understand them much easily and in a much better form. He is not in any way going to deal with the details, especially the unknown details. Everything that President Ramaphosa has been saying today, it's what ordinary citizens have been complaining about. And all he's doing is to say, these are the challenges that as the ANC we've identified, and he is clever enough to start indicating the processes that the ANC has started doing. And that's why he's able to make reference to resolutions of Nasrec, to what they discussed somewhere in August about drawing the sand on matters pertaining to corruption. And all they're trying to do is to say, as a united front, we have this kind of processes, but we also acknowledge that there are certain other corrupt activities that might happen outside the ANC processes. And that's why it's very careful to say individuals that are seen to be participating in corrupt activities will have to be dealt with by the law enforcement agencies. But at his best, he's trying to portray the ANC as a party that is fighting against corruption and as a party that is also fighting or which is also not going to protect individuals that are seen to be involved in corrupt activities.
All right, Mr. Levy Ndou, it's always a pleasure to see you and chat to you. Thank you very much for giving us your input on this afternoon's proceedings. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right.